CFA Level 3 Currency Management and Introduction. This topic requires heavy background of concepts regarding currency we've learned at level 1 and level 2. So we'll have a quick look at what we have learned so far. Let us say we have a spot rate of rupees 50 for a dollar. The currency that we see in the numerator, this currency is called as the price currency. And the currency that we see in the denominator, this currency is called as the base currency. Now the best way to always look at the currency is to think of the denominator of the currency as some commodity. So let us say from rupees 50, if the currency becomes, the new rate becomes rupees 60 for a dollar, then we would say that some commodity that you could have otherwise bought for a price of rupees 50, now you would buy that for a price of rupees 60, and therefore we will say that dollar has appreciated. But from 50, if it becomes 40 for a dollar, then now we will say dollar has depreciated. So we always think from the perspective of base currency. The logic also works in case of forward contract. Let us say you have taken long position on a bond, okay, of 100,000 US dollars. Now you are an Indian investor, so you want to hedge yourself towards the exposure of US dollar. That means to hedge yourself, you should take a short position on the forward contract, but you should take a short position on which forward contract? Because forward contract could be quoted either as rupee by dollar, or it could be quoted as dollar by rupee. So again, you should always think from the perspective of denominator, that I have exposure to 100,000 US dollar. That means in future I want to sell 100,000 US dollar. So if the dollar is in denominator, then I would take a short position. But if rupee is in the denominator, selling US dollar in future means buying rupees dollar in future, and therefore in this particular contract I would take a long position. In fact, long position on this contract is exactly same as short position on this contract. Okay, so the rule of thumb, we always think from the perspective of denominator. Moving further, let us say the spot rate was 1.2 US dollar for a British pound. This is the spot rate, and the rate has changed to 1.44 USD for a British pound. Now we can clearly see that British pound was originally 1.2, now it is 1.4, that means it has appreciated. So how much is the percentage appreciation in the GBP? So we would say 1.44 minus 1.2 divided by 1.2, that would give us the percentage of appreciation. But what is the percentage of depreciation? What is the percentage of depreciation in US dollar? And one rule of thumb is that percentage of appreciation in GBP is not same as percentage of depreciation in US dollar. So to calculate percentage of depreciation in US dollar, ideally we should bring US dollar in the denominator. That means inverse of 1.144 minus inverse of 1 divided by 1.2 divided by 1 divided by 1.2. And if you solve for this, the percentage of depreciation will come out to be 1.44 minus 1.2 divided by 1.44. Is it fine? That means just by shifting the base, you could calculate the percentage of depreciation in US dollar. Yeah, to get the answer in negative. Correct, but in this case, the closing value is still inverse of 1.2. Have I written the other way around? Yeah, so this value will come out to be positive, but it is a depreciation. Yes. Should we go ahead? Third concept now. Third concept is with respect to bid and ask spreads. So typically we know that the forward contracts are entered with the help of dealers, and dealers will quote you a bid-ask spread. So let us say for a particular currency, the rate which is quoted is rupees for dollar, 50 is the bid and 51 is the ask. That means the spread is of 1. But then how do you interpret this? So we always know that, and the way I remember this for my exam, at bid rate, bank will buy. Okay, so that's how I remembered for the examination. And for ask rate, opposite of this is a rate at which bank will sell. But the question is, bank will buy what? Bank will buy rupees or bank will buy dollars? So bank will always buy the denominator, which is base currency. So this is the rate at which bank will buy dollars, and this is the rate at which bank will sell dollars. Now buying dollars is also similar to selling rupees. That means this is also the rate at which bank will sell rupees, and this is also the rate at which bank will buy rupees. So what if you want to convert this to dollar by rupee format? Okay, so for example, using the same example again, let me just clear off this part. So we have rupees 50 for a dollar as bid rate and ask rate. What if you want to convert that to dollar by rupee? If you want to do that, then the inverse of ask is going to be the new bid, and inverse of bid is going to be the new ask. So new bid would be 1 divided by 51 and new ask would be 1 divided by 50. Is that fine? And what is the interpretation of this rate? This is the rate at which bank will buy dollars. This is also the rate at which bank will sell rupee. Bank will once you've inverted this is the rate at which bank will buy dollars. This is the rate at which bank will sell rupee, but the rate is essentially, the mechanism is essentially same, which means this is the rate at which bank will buy dollars, and buying this rate, bank will buy dollars, and this is the rate at which bank will sell dollars. So in this case, bank will buy rupees, and in this rate bank will sell rupees. Are we good to go ahead? Next one now. Next concept is called purchasing power parity. Okay. So how I think of this is, and this question I used to ask myself multiple times, that if this is US and this is India, and both these countries for the first time are going to enter into an exchange of currency, then how will they decide at what rate the currency is to be exchanged? So the currency exchange mechanism should be done in such a way that one particular commodity, let's say a commodity X, the price of that commodity in US and the price of that commodity in India after the exchange conversion has to be exactly same. So assuming that, sorry for this, so this is US and India, assuming that that particular commodity, let's say, comes at a price of $1 US, and that particular commodity in India comes at a price of rupees 50, then the exchange rate would be originally set as rupees 50 for a dollar. Now what if after 1 year this particular commodity in US becomes USD 1.1 and in rupee it becomes rupees 60? That means the rupee price has increased by 20%, which is the inflation rate, and US price has increased by 10%, which is the inflation rate. In order to ensure that the rates are same in both the countries, now the new exchange rate would be 60 divided by 1.1. That means the rupee is depreciating. And we could have also solved this using the purchasing power parity equation, that new rate 50 into 1 plus inflation. Inflation of whom? India. Why India? Because the currency of India is in the numerator. divided by 1 plus US inflation rate 10%, it would be same as this amount. This is called as purchasing power parity. And what purchasing power parity simply tells us that higher inflation leads to depreciation of the currency. Are we fine? The next concept is international Fisher relation. Right? Again, this we learned at level 1 and level 2 both. So what international Fisher relation told you is that 1 plus nominal rate is equal to 1 plus real rate into 1 plus inflation. So a nominal rate is made of real rate plus inflation. So if you get to know that real rate in a country is 3% and inflation in a country is 5%, the nominal rate would be slightly higher than 8%. Are we doing okay? Next concept in the series. Let us say now that current exchange rate as per the purchasing power parity after the first transaction was decided as rupees 50 for a dollar. Now in US as of now the interest rate is 2% and in India the interest rate is 10%. So what an investor decides that he will borrow $2 in US, he will convert those $2 at the rate of rupees 50 for a dollar to Indian rupees. So the amount of Indian rupees he will have is rupees 100. He will take this 100 and he will invest that at the rate of 10%. So by the end of the year, the amount of Indian rupee he will have is 110. Now he goes to a banker on day 0 itself and asks him, tell me one rate today at which you will allow me to sell my Indian rupee 110 back to US dollar. So what calculations that banker will do is, he will say that rate is going to be 110 divided by 2.04. Can you calculate how much is that? 110 divided by 2.04 or whatever that rate is. Now what this rate is telling you is that this is the rate at which there would not be 53.93. At this rate there would not be any arbitrage and therefore this is called as a no arbitrage forward price. This we calculate using the interest rate parity. Right, so we say that forward rate is equal to spot rate into 1 plus interest rate divided by 1 plus interest rate. Interest rate of the currency which is in numerator, which is rupee, and this is the currency which is in the denominator, which is dollar. So in this case 50 into 1.1 divided by 1.02 will give you the same answer, 53.93. And again what we observe here is that India has higher rate, nominal rate, and that has led to depreciation of Indian currency. Are we good to go? Now the last concept in this series where we integrate all these concepts together. Let us say now current exchange rate is rupees 50 for a dollar. First we will use interest rate parity and we will say the interest rate in India, nominal interest rate, is 20% and nominal interest rate in US, let us say, is 10%. So using the interest rate parity we can find out what should be the exchange rate, forward exchange rate. So 50 into 1.2 divided by 1.1, so 1 year forward exchange rate 54.54. This is the rate given to you by interest rate parity. Now we can also use international Fisher relation, and we know that we have the nominal rates. From that we will try to extrapolate what are the inflation rates. So international Fisher relation makes one more assumption, that real interest rate is constant across the world. So let us say that real interest rate is 3%. Once we know real interest rate is 3%, we can find out what are the inflation rates. Okay, so inflation rate in India would be 1.2 divided by 1.03 minus 1. Interest rate in US would be 1.1 divided by 1.03 minus 1. How much in India? 16.504%, and in US No, it should be about 7%. It should be 6 point something. 1.1 divided by 1.03. 6.79. 6.79. Okay, so 6.79% is the inflation in India, assuming that real rate is 3%. Now, once we know this, now we can use this inflation rate and use purchasing power parity. Okay, so purchasing power parity told us that forward rate or future spot rate is equal to current spot rate, which is 50 into inflation in the numerator 1.16504 divided by 1.0679. I'm just using the inflation rates. And how much is this giving us? Yeah, it should have, with all the decimals, it should have been exact. So essentially, international Fisher relation, purchasing power parity and interest parity, all of them are same thing. So why a higher nominal rate leads to depreciation of the currency? Because a higher nominal rate with an assumption of constant real rate leads to higher inflation. And higher inflation using purchasing power parity leads to depreciation of the currency. Is that fine?